guys, today I'm going to do my review of John Green's latest book, Turtles All the Way Down. Obviously this book came out on October 10th and I got it on the day it came out, and I vlogged the whole experience, which I'll leave down below because I was really excited because, bit of context, John Green is my favourite author. It's where our channel name TwoPaperGirls comes from because I like paper towns, paper people, from mine and Amy's favourite book, Paper Towns. And yeah, it's meant a lot to me. His books have. They really united me and Amy's friendship a few years ago. I've kind of took the messages with me throughout my life. So for him to release his first book in 5 years or so was a big deal for me and for Amy, and I just couldn't really believe it was happening, to be honest, because it came quite out of the blue. It was announced in July that it was only a few months away. So I went into it with pretty high expectations because I love his writing, but I don't always love all of his books. Like An Abundance of Catherine's I've only ever read once and don't particularly love. Same with Let It Snow, Will Grayson, Will Grayson. I like them, but they haven't really hit home like Paper Towns did, like Tiffios did. And I do also love Looking for Alaska, not as much as Amy, but I do love that, but not as much as Paper Towns and Tiffios. So I have a range of experiences with his books, mostly positive though. But the main thing is I absolutely love his writing style. I find it really poetic, and it really I just get it, and it just hits me in the right places, and it just always means a lot to me, and I feel like I get what he's trying to say quite a lot. I'm just kind of in tune with it. So going into this book, I was obviously quite biased. I expected to like it. I expected to love it. I was nervous as well because I was like, what if I don't like it? What's that going to mean? So I had very high expectations. So I will just preface this whole review by saying I'm very biased towards John Green. I'm sure for some people, I know on BookTube a lot of people don't like his writing and they don't get it, or they find it too they find it too poetic, not too poetic, but too self-indulgent and that kind of thing. So I get it if you don't like John Green, but bear in mind I'm just aware that I have a bias towards him, and I knew that going into this book. But also I was very nervous, and then he read the first chapter on his channel and I was like, wow, I love this straight away. And I think for the first half of this book I thought it was one of my new favourite books. I thought I liked it just as much as Paper Towns. I thought this is one of the best books I've ever read because the writing, I felt like I got it. It was doing all the kind of literary techniques that I love. It had a lot of meta-narrative, so it was quite self-aware of it being a book because Aza talks a lot about, is she real? Is she almost a character? Who's in control of her story? Is she in control of her story and what she does? And that all links in with the theme of OCD and mental health in this book, because she isn't in control of her thoughts a lot of the time because she has intrusive thoughts which take over her mind, and she doesn't want to be thinking about germs in something or the bacteria in her food that's eating her while she's digesting it. She doesn't want to think about those things, but they just happen. So she feels like she has no control over her own life, and I feel like control was a big theme in this book, especially in the first half. There was a lot of is she real? And even the first time says, at the time I first realised I might be fictional, and then it goes on, but immediately she's thinking about the fact that she's fictional in a book where obviously she is fictional. So I just love that kind of meta-narrative self-awareness that you get in books. So I was really loving that aspect of it. So definitely the theme of control was something I really enjoyed and thought was done really well in this, and overall I just found the portrayal of mental health really, really good. I've never experienced OCD. I have experienced anxiety, which the main character Aza gets at times as well, but I just thought it was a very almost grim portrayal, which I appreciated because too many YA, especially YA books, but also in media in general, it's really romanticised, and then this you see the grim realities of it day in, day out, how she constantly reopens this cut on her thumb with her fingernails, so she digs it in to this fingernail wound to make it bleed, and that's so she can squeeze out all the blood and pus and then obsessively put hand sanitizer in it so she knows it's clean and not infected. And if it starts to heal, she thinks, what if it's healed over loads of bacteria? What if I'm going to get this horrible disease? So it's an obsessive habit that she has, and that isn't a cool romanticised thing to happen. That's not something she enjoys. It causes her pain, it causes her discomfort, and she can't stop herself from doing it. And that's not giving her superpowers to save herself or save anyone else. And I think that was another big theme of this book, is that no one could save her. You know, she had a supportive mum, a best friend, a sort of love interest as well, and none of them can save her, and none of them do. And at the end of the book, it isn't a positive ending in terms of she's like, I don't have OCD anymore, but it is quite hopeful, which I did appreciate. I feel like I'm rambling. I was almost putting off doing this review because I was like, I don't know how to put together all my thoughts, and immediately when I finished it, I thought I want to just reread it again, which I didn't, but I did enjoy this book, but I think it's more of a 4-star read, and that's because I said, like, I really enjoyed the first half. I felt very in tune with the themes and the writing. Then the second half, I kind of felt like it lost its way a little bit. Partly I read it so quickly because I wanted to know what was happening, and because of John Green's book, they tend to have a pretty climactic ending. If you think of Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, especially Tifios, something pretty big happens at the end, and I was waiting for something that huge. In a way that didn't really happen. There was a biggish event, a kind of a climax to the book, but it wasn't like grand scale huge, which fit the story because I feel like this is a lot more realistic and kind of zoomed in on an experience of mental health than anything else. It's not about like wild wacky teens really. I think on a reread I won't be anticipating the ending as much, wanting to know what was happening, and I take it a lot slower. And in the first half I did read it really slowly because every single sentence and paragraph I was considering like the extra layer of meaning, and I just wanted to write essays on it. And in the second half I didn't really do that. I just sort of zoomed through it. So I think I really love to reread it and kind of get my sticky notes, underline it, and just really feel like I understood it, and then I'd love to do a video series talking about like my thoughts and analysing it, because Amy also didn't love this book as much as she hoped. She said partly she felt like the themes and analysis sort of went over her head. I love to do that video just to kind of help people understand it in more of a literary lens. Another friend who read it who said he really hated the character of Aza and her friend, and I was like, yeah, no, I must admit the friend Daisy I wasn't a big fan of. I felt like, again, it was a fairly like accurate portrayal of it's difficult to have a loved one with a mental health problem because they're not always nice to you, they act irrationally, and sometimes you resent that in them. And that's definitely what Daisy had towards Aza. She resented her friend in a lot of ways. I don't feel like that was resolved in the best way it could have been, and I feel like Daisy was kind of unfairly cruel, and Aza at the end seemed to be quite like, we're best friends again, and I was like, I don't think Daisy's made up for some of the things she did by the end of the book. So it didn't sit quite well with me, their friendship. It felt quite one-sided. I don't know, Daisy just I never really warmed to her, and she wasn't the kind of supportive best friend I sort of wanted Aza to have. I mean, she was and she wasn't. It was kind of difficult. Same with the sort of love interest romance. I didn't love that. I found it cute at times, but I found him to be quite a 2D character. So it was those kind of character problems where, but I thought Aza was really well fleshed out, and she wasn't always likeable. Like my friend said, oh, Aza was just really horrible and annoying, and it's like, well, yeah, she kind of is. Like, not everyone's perfect, and she definitely isn't, and she knows that, and her mental health obviously reflects on that because it makes her a lot more inward. She doesn't open up to people, she doesn't listen to people very well, she's quite like self-indulged. But I know from John talking in his videos about that, something he experiences, like when he's in quite a bad place with his mental health, he's really bad at listening to the people around him and caring about anything to do with their lives. So again, I think it was just him injecting a bit of personal story into this about how, you know, mental health kind of makes you a bit of a crap person, and you're very lucky if you have loved ones that stick around through that because it makes you a shit friend basically. At least it can do. So I think the mental health representation in this book was really, really good, and a lot better than most books I've seen. So there's no romanticisation of I can save you or you can save me, or like it's all going to be okay. It was kind of like, you know, she's going to have to live with this her whole life, probably. And that's something she's dealing with, and she's just kind of finding better coping mechanisms. And she's already in therapy, she's already on medication. That doesn't solve it. You know, some of these stories, it can be people discovering they have a mental health problem, going to the doctor, and then it's all kind of fine. And it's like, well, no, it's not for her. When it doesn't make it better, it doesn't make it just go away. It's like a everlasting part of her. I think partly she has to accept these intrusive thoughts are part of her. They feel like another person and someone that isn't her, like intruding, but they all mix together to make her as a person. And I think that was a nice message throughout the book. I just have so many thoughts. I feel like I'm just rambling and spewing out so many thoughts talking about this. I'm missing so many things I'm sure I wanted to talk about, but I don't want to make this too long, and I also don't want to include any spoilers, obviously. But yeah, I think I would definitely reread this book quite soon. I'd like to read it in 2018 and kind of really go through it with a fine-tooth comb, really kind of decide what I think of it. I think I was struggling to do this review because I didn't know how I felt, because I know I'm so biased towards John Green. I'm like, oh, I loved it, it was amazing, I love the writing, I love the themes, like, it was such a good book. But then on the other hand, I'm like, well, it had problems, but I can't objectively judge it. I like to think, what if someone else wrote this book, what would I think of it? But I know someone else didn't, and I could tell it was John Green, and I just love his writing, and I just find it really hard to, like, judge my opinion. I think I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, and that's kind of, like, more showing my love towards his writing style than to this book specifically. I think it is probably more of a 4 stars, but I do think my rating could go up on a second reread, because all of his other books I've reread lots of times, and I think when I first read Tiffios I thought, oh, it was like 4 stars, it was okay, and now I feel like I appreciate it a lot more. So I do think that will happen. But I would definitely recommend this book if you like books about mental health, if you like John Green's writing already, or if you just like contemporaries in general and you haven't really gotten into John Green yet. I think this is a really good book. I think he's definitely improved a lot of things from his old writing, from his other books, but I do think they just hold such a nostalgic place in my heart. I find it hard to judge, but I would definitely recommend this book. I think if you don't like John Green, like you haven't enjoyed his other books, it's up to you if you give it a go. You know, it's only like 300 pages, it's a very quick read, and for some people they might prefer that this book is a little bit more grounded and has a more serious tone. It isn't as kind of crazy as his other books in terms of what these characters get up to. If it's the characters of his other books you don't like, these characters are particularly likeable, so you also might not like it for that reason. I'd love to know down below if you read this book and what you thought of it, because let's get a discussion going. I'm not sure how I felt about it. Mostly I really enjoyed it, I do want to preface that, but I just find it so hard to talk about. I do really need to reread it and kind of try and judge it out of the excitement, out of the hype, out of it's John Green's new book, and just kind of take it for what it is. But I think I really love the writing. I thought the characters were well developed but not necessarily likeable. Not all of them, but mostly they were kind of well developed, and it had a good message and good themes, and generally was executed really well. But my problems with it were some characters weren't as developed as they could have been, and I kind of felt like the book needed another 100 pages or something to kind of flesh out some bits of storyline, like the romance element, some of the characters, and kind of the ending as well. But overall, I did really enjoy this book. Let me know down below what you think of it, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!